Good afternoon, members of the media. Thank you for your patience. And most importantly, thank you for joining us this very first Alliance for Change press conference for 2025. Let me say Happy New Year to everyone, to the members of the media, and of course, we wish you safety, good health, and lots of happy moments in 2025, and of course, prosperity. Having said that, I just want to say that I'm happy we have a fairly large contingent of our executive of the Alliance for Change. And without further ado, I want to ask Beverly Alert, Executive Member and Member of Parliament, to start off with her presentation.
Thank you, Kathy. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, I would first like to join Kathy in wishing you and your families and your colleagues all the best for 2025. And we're very glad that you're here with us. As you know, 2025 is an election year. Elections are constitutionally due within a matter of months. And at this point, we have zero confidence that the Elections Commission is acting in a manner that would lend credibility to the next elections. If you would have caught the leader of the Alliance, Mr. Nigel Hughes' announcement on New Year's Day, you'd have noted that we highlighted the need for a clean list and for the use of biometrics at the place of polls. These are calls that we were making in 2024. This is 2025. As I said, we are months away from the elections, and we see no movement by the Guyana Elections Commission to improve the system. The system that was used in 2020, as we all know, led to chaos. We cannot afford to go down that road again. We're calling on the Elections Commission to announce what improvements are being made. You would recall that in December at the Commission of Inquiry into the 2020 polls, the chairperson of the Elections Commission testifying said that at that point when the country was in turmoil and everything was going wrong at the Ashman's building, that she could not bother with people. Well, we were afraid the chairperson of the Elections Commission, the Honorable Madam Justice Claudette Singh, is still not bothered. And that is a dangerous position to be in months away from an election. If Justice Claudette Singh believes that she cannot handle the pressures of the Elections Commission, the pressures of an elections, then she really should do the honorable thing and resign. In the interest of this nation, she needs to do the honorable thing and allow us sufficient time to find a replacement. It is a stressful job. We acknowledge that. And so we're calling on Madam Justice Singh to either step up to the task or allow someone else to come in who can do the job, who has the fortitude to do the job. We, as the Alliance for Change, we do not want to go down the road of 2020 again. We're months away from elections, as I said, and we need to correct that list. A country of less than 1 million people, probably 800,000 thereabout, because remember, we still don't have the census report. And we have a list of electors that is over 700,000. It is just not understandable. And right now, the laws provide for the use of biometrics at the place of poll. And so there's no real reason why we should not have biometrics as an identification standard for voters, for electors. But we're giving GCOM every opportunity. Every opportunity. We stand ready to support financial measures for the use of biometrics at the place of polls. And so, ladies and gentlemen of the media, You will be seeing much more activism from the Alliance for Change to pressure GCOM so that we have credible elections this year. I thank you.
Thank you, Member of Parliament Beverly Alert. And as we continue our review of events and issues last year and the ones that are current, I would like to invite Ms. Laura George to give us her comments on issues in the Indigenous community. After that, we will go to Dr. Vince Adams, who is joining us virtually.
Thank you, Kathy. Good afternoon, everyone. Dombarong, I would say, in my language, is brothers and sisters, my people. So there are some issues that are coming from last year being brought onto this year. Perhaps before that, I should say a very happy new year to everyone. I must say, though, that the year has started not so happy for many persons. And I want to bring to the table or to the conference, the press conference today, the issue of the public systems, the government systems, which need to be enhanced quickly, a lot more urgently, and I think I said this last year, because for the fact that there are people today who have still not been paid their salaries. For example, teachers who even though they started teaching last year, September, and for 3-4 months, for whatever reason, it's a back and forth between the Teaching Service Commission and the Ministry of Education, blaming the other for appointment letters not sent across or whatever correspondence and documentation not getting back and forth. If this is the condition and the situation of having the central systems not functioning efficiently, proficiently, then this needs to be addressed and have a system revised where there is a lot more decentralized system so that it is a lot more accessible. And making it accessible should not mean that because we are in regions, the administrative regions, that it is more responsive. It is not working. So let me give an example. For the teachers of Region 7, Region 7's administrative area is Bartica. For any public worker or anything to be addressed and that needs the Regional Democratic Council's attention, persons from the Upper Mazaruni are required to travel to Georgetown, then onwards to Bartica. Then to return home, they have to come back from Bartica to Georgetown and then join an aircraft, which is costly, back to the Upper Mazaruni. So this is the reason what I'm saying is decentralizing will also need to look into making it a lot more accessible in terms of geographic locations and decentralizing from that areas. If I go to Region 8, it will be a similar situation. Persons who live in the North Pacaraimas have to come across to Madia. If anything else, they still have to come back to Georgetown for the central ministry, for example, to look into their issues. This is non-responsive to Indigenous peoples. Another area I want to address is the whole issue of the cash grant. Whilst in Georgetown we see that there are lines and where there are persons who are a lot more assertive and speaking up for their rights, we're aware that as Indigenous peoples, when we're told, we're quiet and we're not very confrontational, I would urge Indigenous persons out there in the communities to speak up against the injustices that we face in the communities. Injustices meaning in lack of access to have a responsive system that is a lot more respectful of us as Indigenous peoples. In the year of 2025, which, as Beverly said earlier, is the elections year, you will be overrun with a lot of gifts. a lot of promises or a lot of gifts in the forms of whether it's cash grants or whether it's in, what do you call it, the administration, I know have been paying a lot of visits, but also making sure that we pay attention to us as citizens having the right to choose and having the right to choose to vote for a different party that respects us as Indigenous peoples. The Alliance for Change will be looking to make sure that the whole history and experience that we have faced where state resources are abused must not continue, must not be the place where Indigenous communities are at the receiving end of state resources and abuse, or the state resources being abused in our communities, and made us to feel that we are being done a favor. I want to call and remind on us that as Indigenous peoples and as citizens of Guyana, we deserve respect, we deserve a lot more, and I want to call on you in this new year to stop settling for less, to stop settling for and telling ourselves that it's better than nothing, because we deserve respect, we deserve a lot more, because we are worth a lot more. One of the main things that we need to have and look into and push for, even though it's the year of elections, is to recognize that much needed law, which is the Amerindian Act revision, has been on the very last of the PPP's administration, even though they are aware that if our rights are not protected in law, whether it's for health, education, land rights, social protection services, protected areas, benefits and royalties from extraction of resources as provided for in law is not being adhered to, that there are even no regulations under the Amerindian Act. So a lot of things that we need to work towards is ensuring that these rights, our rights, are protected in law. So that's one of the areas where the AFC will be paying attention and pushing for rights protections of Indigenous peoples. This is 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura George. And can I invite Dr. Vince Adams to share his message today?
And
Doc, I
thanks
think you
to,
might be mute, or let's see.
hold on.
No, you're okay. You're okay.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Okay, thanks, Kathy, and welcome to the media, and wishing you all a happy new year and all the best to you and your family for the rest of the 2025. I'm gonna be talking about our production sharing agreement and the full liability coverage for an oil spill that both have now resurfaced. Thanks to the media for asking questions in the past several press conferences and conducted by both the president and the vice president. The vice president seems to not want to stop peddling just a bunch of lies all the time, and I want to dispel some of those lies. To start with, he gives the impression in his yesterday's press conference that somehow the AFC invented the production sharing agreement. That is totally false. As a matter of fact, when the coalition came into office, 7 contracts were already signed. 7. There are a total of 9 oil and gas contracts. 7 were signed by the PPP government, and all of those contracts are almost identical. The Starbrook Block contract was changed by not the AFC, but by the coalition, by Mr. Trotman. But here again, he says, and then he continues, he even gets into more details. He lambasts the stability contract, and he's very specific. He says, well, this is what they put in there. The stability contract, the stability clause is in every single one of those contracts that they sign, the same exact clause. The change clause that says that you've got to have the consent or the approval of Exxon or the contractor to make any changes to the contract or to renegotiate the contract. That was not put in there by the coalition. That was in there in every single contract that they themselves signed. The decommissioning clause. Yesterday, I think that's a new one I'm hearing him talking about now. He said that, oh, they put that in there, and because they put it in there, we've got to change it. That again is a blatant lie. They are all in every single one of those contracts. And I think, I would ask the media to really put him on the spot with follow-up questions as to why he is trying to give the impression that they had nothing to do with these contracts when the same set of things were in those contracts. He goes on in terms of the renegotiations. He's coming up. First of all, he started out, well, there's sanctity of contract. You've got to live by the sanctity of contract. Well, after getting caught there, he started sliding like a slippery eel. He says, well, in their manifesto, go back a few press conferences ago, he says that in their manifesto, they never said that they were going to renegotiate. As a matter of fact, he said in their manifesto, it says that they will not renegotiate. So I never read the manifesto before. Then I went back and checked the manifesto, and it says the complete opposite, that they said that they will renegotiate the contract. And he's on video in Parliament, in his battle red shirt, shouting from the rooftop that people ought to be sad for every single discovery. We've sold out the patrimony. So I want to know, when he talks about people selling out the patrimony of this country, is he talking about his party that signed 7 contracts? Why is he trying to give the impression again, to falsify, to give the impression that the coalition signed all of these contracts? So he needs to answer if he is also bashing his own party for signing those contracts with almost exact the same terms in those contracts. Some of the things, well, in terms of the renegotiation, he comes up and he said, well, the sanctity of contract, we cannot change the contract because of, the sanctity of contract. Well, let me give you a list of things, and these are just just a few of the things. The audit, they have extended the audit from 2 years to who knows how long now. There was a window for auditing. Now it's extended beyond the 2 years. In the contract itself, it says, and I think it's at clause 12, it says for any use of the natural gas beyond what is used on the FPSO for energy and reinjection, for any use such as the gas, the energy plant, and the pipeline, you must conduct a feasibility study. The only feasibility study that he has come up with is it's the no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. We at the EPA, we changed the contract says that the government must have 7 days, give the contractor 7 days notice to visit the site. We changed that to make it unimpeded access up to and including unannounced visits. The famous parent company guarantee, that was one of the biggest changes, and Exxon agreed to that, by the way, but that's a different story. But Exxon agreed to that parent company guarantee. The contract says that they should be self-insured. But since MGL does not have any assets, we said the parent company guarantee has to be put in place so that Exxon, who could afford to pay for it, they would have to stand the cost. Now, up to yesterday again in this press conference, on the Exim Bank loan, this man says that, well, we are saying they didn't do an EIS or they didn't do a feasibility study. He said that Exim Bank did an EIA and the feasibility study. Well, show us those documents. Show us those documents. So first of all, Exim Bank cannot do an EIA. The EIA is specifically stated in terms of the protocol and the process for doing an EIA. It's in our EPA Act. It's in our law. See, don't come, he's coming with this foolishness that Exim did the EIA. We said they never did an EIA. Not only that, in the pipeline EIA itself said that the Shore project, which is the conversion, the natural gas plant and stuff like that, in the gas plant EIA, it said that there will be an EIA conducted for the gas plant. He came back and said that there will be no EIA, and now he's coming back and saying that Exim Bank did an EIA and they did a feasibility study. And what was interesting, and I'm sure that David probably picked up on this, he started giving all kinds of numbers. Show us those numbers. You said you're going to produce at 22 cents per kilowatt. And you're producing at 4 cents now. He said it's 4 cents, but you're selling at 22 cents. Everything is what he makes up in his mind. Show us those numbers where it came from a credible source. So those are the kinds of things that I want to dispel. And the other thing that he said here in not too long ago was somehow that we're going to get to the point where we're going to be getting 52% of the revenues. That is impossible for you to get 52% of the revenue unless, I don't know where he learned his simple arithmetic. Unless there's zero cost for operation, you're never going to get to 52%. The most, if you want a good number, is probably between 30 and 40%. Because even when you finish paying for your capital cost, there's an operation cost which could range from 30 to 40%. And let's say it's 40%. So now you take out 40% as cost oil, you're left with 60% as profit oil. You're going to get half of that, which is 30%. And if you add 2% royalty on top of that, it's 32%. It's impossible to get to 52%. So it's nonsense to be talking about getting 52%. So those are but could you imagine? And then the other thing is, which is what by the way, all of these issues, we've been talking about these things on this same press conference forum, the AFC, for years now. But I'm glad and we're happy that it's suddenly on the front burner again, because these are important issues, and we're glad that the media is paying attention, and I'm glad that you're asking the question again: why is the vice president and the president making excuses for not asking Exxon about renegotiation? What are they scared about? They're talking about they're going to renegotiate every contract except for Exxon. The clause is there very clearly that says you have to, the only way you can get them to understand if you want to renegotiate, it's putting it in writing. What are they afraid of to put it in writing? This kind of feckless, is this the kind of leadership that we want in this country? Who's afraid to even approach an international company to ask for renegotiation for a better deal for its people? They just celebrated the PPP just celebrated its 75th anniversary. A party that was brought by, of course, Dr. Jagan and LFS Burnham, and I'm sure that Dr. Jagan must be turning in his grave when he sees what's going on here with the cowardly behavior of this leadership. When Jagan himself, along with Forbes Burnham, fought for the rights of the people for us to get a fair deal with bauxite, with Denver and the operators of bauxite and Bokors for sugar. And now Exxon has taken their places, but now we've got a government, in contrast to Burnham and Jagan, who's scared of even approaching these international behemoths to get a better deal for our people. Thanks.
Very much, Dr. Vince Adams, and I'm happy to have us move over to Chairman of the Alliance for Change, Mr. David Patterson, Member of Parliament.
Thank you very much, Cathy, and first and foremost, a Happy New Year to the media and to the rest of the country. And I would like to pick up from where Dr. Adams left off by saying that we've been speaking about certain issues for the entire 2024, well, since the PPP has returned. And while I'm pleased to say that the Alliance for Change, you can call us CFAR people, I mean that every prediction that we have made has come true. It is sad for the country of Guyana. And I start off by saying that the 2024 has highlighted the mismanagement of our entire energy and infrastructure development sector by the PPP. They are pure fluff and bluff. I start off with with everyone's favorite topic, GPL. We have spent an extraordinary amount of money, firstly, in buying 27 third-hand containers out of Honduras and 2 power ships, one from Cuba, the other one from Turkey. And immediately after they triumphantly announced the end of blockouts, we have blockouts every single year of 2025, which shows that they obviously have not studied the problem. They obviously have not detailed it. What they're simply doing is throwing taxpayers' money behind hair-scarum deals. The Alliance for Change would have issued a letter which details that the total cost of these interventions to the Guyanese public would be $380 million by the end of 2025. With that money, under the stewardship of the AP and UAFC's government, that $375 million, we would have done a tremendously better job. With quarter of that money, we were able to stabilize the system and provide a more reliable service to the people. The issue is, and it remains, that we have a very fragile power generation system, generators as well as a transmission and distribution line. This was identified. Under the coalition, we did several studies by several international corporations, including Siemens and all this. IDB did studies, the ministry did, GPL, the studies were all readily available. And it identified 17 to 20 different flaws in our power generation and distribution system. What we did as a coalition is that we immediately priced it out. And as you can remember, and if anyone Googles it, our initial intervention was $101 million to fix the transmission and distribution intervention from the ISDB. Immediately on coming in, of course, the PPP canceled that project. They actually canceled every intervention we made, and that's why we are where we are. So folks, I mean, they will continue blaming birds, they will continue blaming errant drivers, they will continue blaming climate change and so many other things. But unfortunately, we will not be rid of blockouts until we get rid of the PPP. I'd like to move on to another great project, the Demerara Harbor Bridge completion of this bridge. We are now on to the 3rd drop-dead date. The bridge, unfortunately, was supposed to have finished the first drop-dead date. No delays. It's a fixed contract, and I can just visualize the Jagdeo and Ejil speaking. No delays were acceptable, and it was supposed to be the 31st. 3 days ago, the 31st of December, 2024. We said to them, impossible. They then announced another drop-dead date, March 31st, 2024. We said, impossible. We simply said that you can say what you want, we'll just wait you out. We wait until March 31st. Knowing that's impossible, they now have a 3rd drop-dead date of August the 31st, 2024. And we once again say to them, impossible. Total mismanagement. The only truthful thing you probably would have heard from the PPP is the admission by President Ali that maybe this bridge will be finished at the end of 2025. Obviously, what they're doing is trying to stop the criticism, the public criticisms of their mismanagement. That's why they announce these dates and then keep pushing it back, blaming the water levels in Panama, blaming COVID. They're still using COVID. They're blaming every single thing that they ever. But we can say again, and as you could say it out, we don't want to put this onto the people, but we do tell you that the bridge will not be completed by August the 31st, and maybe if we're lucky, some other people may drop dead by then. The gas to shore project, that is another one. I mean, I'm just telling you, I'm just going through it. I don't have time to go through all the millions of things. The gas to shore project, they've been triumphant, but still acknowledge what we said, what I said, that the announcement that Jagdio made in November, October was premature. So they had another press conference to confirm, right, that his premature announcement has now been confirmed, without admitting to the people that he jumped the gun. But this project is another one that was supposed to be finished by December 2024. I mean, obviously, everything was supposed to be finished by this year. That's delayed. They have 2 claims, and I've been understand the second claim is just about the same. So of the $527 million that they will be getting, they will be most likely have to pay out $100 million out of that in claims, purely because they never ever actually prepared for the project. On top of that, in a letter today, I informed the public that the Honorable Prime Minister, who is touted as an officer and a gentleman, has stoutly refused to hand over to the Parliament, not to David Patterson, not the AFC, to the Parliament of Guyana and the people of Guyana, the contracts which he promised. He promised, he got up there, I mean, and we would play the clips all this year, that he would deliver. He made an apology in November the 27th, to the nation for his shortcomings, and yet we're into a new year, and he has not handed over anything. We're into the election season, ladies and gentlemen, and soon you'll hear about how the PPP has a transparency. They keep their promises, and now, I mean, they have their both promises kept. Well, the Prime Minister, and they will of course unleash the Prime Minister on the unsuspected public, saying that he's a gentleman, he has a distinguished career in the military and those things like that. So I'm just highlighting, when he comes, ask him if this project that this promises was not being delivered. Quickly, here are some other projects that are supposed to be completed in 2024, and we don't know. CGIA, $5 million since the coalition, since 2020. Still to be completed. The Linden Lethem Road, a project designed and tendered and left on a platter since 2020 for the PPP to execute. 4 years and counting. Cannot be finished. The East Bank Road, the embankment expansion, the Quarantine Road, the airport at Paramaribo, the stadium at Paramaribo, the Wisma Bridge, the new Wisma Bridge. These are all projects that are supposed to be completed by 2024. The new Ministry of Works office complex, $15 billion. They've paid out $8 billion to the contractor. I saw recently they said only 10% of the work has been done. So they've given a contractor at the end of 2024 50% of the money, and they're now claiming only 10% of it has been completed. Finally, of course, my 2 great projects which I keep telling about, and I would like to say Happy New Year to the commissioners of the Public Procurement Commission. I do hope that you will take the time out to do what you've committed. You've claimed that in your report on the Bellevue pump station that you will be monitoring the project, and if the progress is not up to scratch, you'll be recommending that the agency terminated that, as well as the port drawing. We have seen no report out to the Public Procurement Commission, so I hope after you finish your Christmas festivities that maybe you can get down to some work in 2025. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. David Patterson, Member of Parliament. And now I'd like to invite the leader of the Alliance for Change, Mr. Nigel Hughes, to make his comments.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, members of the press, and of course, good afternoon, Vice President, or fourth-term President, Mr. Jagdeo. A very, very blessed and happy 2025 to you. I don't propose to keep you terribly long, but there are some important matters that I want to speak about. And the first one is the judiciary. It is now evident that President Ali does not intend to confirm either the Chancellor, Ms. Yana Cummings, or the Chief Justice, Ms. Roxanne George, in their respective positions. They have served in these positions for 7 years, and it is evident now that he does not intend to confirm them. So the country has to ask some questions. In an election year, which this is, the President said that he will shortly let us know who his persons are to be nominated for the position of Chancellor and Chief Justice. This clearly means that he doesn't intend to appoint these persons, and as you know, any decision taken in an election year, particularly in regard to the judiciary, is looked at with great suspicion. And so we have to examine the process of appointments of judges and the process by which people are confirmed or appointed as Chancellor. It was our hope at the last constitutional reform talks that by requiring the consent of the Leader of the Opposition, that we at least would reach to some position of national consensus. It is evident that after the retirement of Madam Chancellor Bernard, the country has not ever had any form of consensus. And so now we come to an election year where the President says he will identify. Well, in the interest of transparency and in the interest of this country, we believe that the bases upon which judges, the Chancellor, and the Chief Justice is appointed in their individual cases must be made public. So we first of all should know what the criteria is. This should no longer be left to the head of state as some form of privilege, but the entire country should know what the selection criteria is for the appointment of judges, whether at the High Court or Court of Appeal level. An advertisement is not sufficient. I think the entire country deserves to know the basis upon which persons are considered. So in the case of the Chancellor and the Chief Justice, if the President does not intend to inform us or does not intend to confirm them, he needs to inform all of us about the reason why he would have allowed them to have acted for 7 years and now at this late stage of the day, not confirm them. Secondly, there has been a lot of disquiet and rumors, suspicion in relation to the upcoming appointments to the Court of Appeal. There was an announcement in one of the major press centers, Stabrook News, I believe sometime in December, that they had identified some judges who had been nominated to be appointed to the Court of Appeal. The very long delay and complete absence of any comment arising out of the judiciary in relation to why those appointments have not been made public is cause for speculation. It gets worse because the quality of some of the persons who have been rejected, who appeared to most of the profession to have been eminently qualified for appointment, has led to even further speculation. And so I think the country ought to know exactly what is going on in relation to the appointment of judges to the Court of Appeal. We can no longer afford to assume that there is full transparency and that the persons who are appointed to the Judicial Service Commission act in necessarily the most transparent manner. And in keeping with our commitments to fairness, equality, and transparency, we believe that the criteria ought to be made public before any further announcement is made, either in regard to the confirmation or non-confirmation of the Chancellor and Chief Justice, and also those persons who have been appointed to the Court of Appeal. The second item I'd like to talk about is the clear threat to citizens of this country who may be interested, just may be interested, in running for office, that they are going to be subject to scrutiny. Scrutiny is really just a false name for harassment. We believe in this country any citizen who wants to run for office should run for office and should never be threatened, whether by some veil or expressly. And therefore, those persons who have, might I say, attracted the wrath of the fourth-term president recently and who have been threatened with scrutiny, in the case of Mr. Campbell, and more recently in the case of Mr. Azruddin Mohammed, we believe that a strong statement should be made by all political parties and the civil society that the more people we have in the political race broadens the range of options for the citizenry, and we fully support more people entering the fray. For whatever reason, people may or may not dislike the candidates who may be considering entering. They should not be deterred by veiled threats coming from offices as high as the Vice President that they will be subject to scrutiny. And therefore, in the circumstances, we reject any attempt by the government to put pressure on persons who may be considering. It is not lost on this population that the message that's being sent both in the case of Terence Campbell and in the case of Mr. Mohammed, and perhaps more recently in the case of Mr. Lal, is that it is intended as a warning to anybody who dares to threaten the People's Progressive Party while in office, that they have to be careful because they will be, quote unquote, subject to scrutiny. This is not a new thing. This has been here in Guyana for years. There are long stories about people being threatened with income tax, people being threatened with various other things. And we believe that if we want to build a modern society, a democratic society, that any person who wants to enter the political fray, particularly if they appear to be popular, and particularly if they have ideas that can be useful for the development of this country, they should do so. Do not wait until they express some interest to threaten them with scrutiny. The other point which I think all of us are deeply saddened by is the treatment of the pensioners and the teachers in the collection of the 100,000 cash grant. This paltry sum, which somehow in the mind of the president is supposed to generate generational wealth, has caused the beneficiaries and recipients of their own money, not the government's money, not the PPP's money, to have to go through so many forms of indignity, so many forms of humiliation to collect what they are entitled to. Pensioners who have to gather from before 6 o'clock in the morning just to make sure that they secure at least a position that will allow them to leave sufficiently early. Teachers, for whom there are more than adequate records of where they're located, what their salaries are, who have to line up in indignity. This is not what Guyana is about. This is not what we struggled this long for. And we therefore wish to encourage the government that in going forward, at least they should treat people with the dignity they deserve. They are not begging for this. You did not create this wealth. This is not the result of your fantastic economic policies. This is a gift from God, and therefore they need to be treated with the dignity of angels. And we hope that the appalling treatment that has been given to them recently will stop immediately, and that measures will be taken to ensure that they're treated with the appropriate level of dignity. As I'm dealing with this issue of treatment by the government. I want to touch on the fact that recently, I believe it was the Vice President who has now indicated that there will be continuous grants of various sums going forward. Now, this is a classic example of what we all complained of. This is everybody in the opposition. Nobody's trying to steal a march here about ad hocery. And this is a perfect example of ad hoc decision-making that has serious financial implications for the country. We wish to repeat again that the long-term, short-term, and medium-term economic development of this country cannot be subject to political whims and fancies. You will recall it was the president who first said he was going to give $2 million to a household. After the opposition, Mr. Jordan and various other $200,000, sorry, per household. After it was drawn to his attention, both by the former finance minister and ourselves, that would cause problems, the vice president said it would be $100,000 per person. We urged, and we repeat again, that there needs to be a statutory and regulatory framework to determine many things. First of all, the criteria by which we decide how much money should be given, the frequency of that transfer to the citizenry, and the methodology, and most importantly, the grievance system that is put in place to allow people who have not received or who have been intentionally overlooked to complain and have some sort of official judicial review of those actions. And so, again, we say that this ad hoc policy of the government of announcing, as they find politically convenient, to say now that there will be further distributions, which we are not opposed to, but it has to come within a particular framework. Again, we wish to repeat our invitation that was made in July, that this country deserves long-term plans in 5 key areas, and we believe that the economy is one of them, and we wish to invite the government to revisit. Alleviation of poverty is also another. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, we have had some very salutary warnings coming from our sister CARICOM country that has just declared a state of emergency. First of all, I would like on behalf of the Alliance for Change to offer our support to the government of Trinidad and Tobago as it grapples with a very, very, very urgent and grave threat to the good order and security of its citizens. We should, as a nation, offer to assist in any way we can. But more importantly for Guyana, the lessons from Trinidad and Tobago, our sister CARICOM country, are very, very salutary. Trinidad and Tobago was wealthy in the 1970s as a result of oil and gas, and it went through several cycles of that. And they are now at the stage where the law enforcement agencies are probably outgunned by the criminal gangs. We are well aware of the lack of confidence people have in our law enforcement agency, and we are well aware of the capacities of the criminal enterprise in this country. The fact that we have to get foreign assistance to identify where nearly $200,000 worth of cocaine may be buried within our own shores is a clear indication of our incapacity to fight serious crime. We have warned before, and we are going to repeat that warning, that all the factors that lead to the difficulties in Trinidad and Tobago will inevitably and invariably affect Guyana in similar or more dramatic fashion, unless, of course, we all collectively take a common position in dealing with crime. The reality with the amount of money that passes through the entire Caribbean every year in the billions of US dollars, whether in the form of narcotics, whether in the form of arms, or whether in the proceeds of narcotic sales, threatens the integrity of several Caribbean states. And therefore, we, at this very, very fragile state of our development, We at the same stage as Trinidad is in terms of ethnic suspicions. We need to find a common front before it becomes too late for us. We are only too well aware of the fragility of our law enforcement agencies and their capacities. So, insofar as Trinidad and Tobago is concerned, we offer our support to the government of Trinidad in tackling this. And we believe that there should be a CARICOM-wide approach to addressing this level of threat to the good order of our societies. The imposition of a state of emergency or martial law is not the optimal state. We need a long-term solution, and therefore we have to look at the root causes of what has led to Trinidad being where it is, and what we need to do in Guyana to be able to arrest any development in that direction. I thank you, and I repeat my good wishes for 2025.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hughes. And at this point, I'd like to invite the media to present any questions that they may have. Please identify yourself and also, if necessary, the person or officer from the AFC you'd like to answer the question. So I see Davina from Kaichor News has her hand up. Over to you, Davina.
Is she muted?
Davina, we're not hearing you. I don't know if you could repeat.
Can you hear me clearer now?
Now we're hearing you. Thank you very much.
Okay, my first question. Does the AFC agree that the interest rate on the U.S. Exim Bank loan for the gas to energy project is very competitive? And secondly, the president explained recently that he has no interest in renegotiating the oil contract with Exxon. Can the parties say what this means for Guyana and perhaps how this differs from the party's previous position? Thank you.
I will attempt the first one, and the second one I'm sure that Vince will on the negotiation, because he spoke about it in his statement. Look, the very first issue is that we are concerned with the amount of money this country is borrowing. At whatever interest rates or not. I mean, from what we heard from the Vice President, we'll be paying $60 million a year, and we will be paying almost $300 million in interest. We have enough money, and with prudent planning, we could have financed all of these projects, everyone, the gas to shore project, which, as we've said all the years, is extremely overpriced. And Davina, please remember, this is documented, that when the project was under the AFC at the coalition, the whole project, entire project, pipeline, power stations, gas plants, was under $600 million US. When the PPP first brought this project out to the country, and it's there, and then I went back and I looked at it again. The presentation they made under the BENAB, the president, was $810 million. We've now skyrocketed to over $2 billion. So the very first thing is the project is ill-conceived, mismanaged, as well as overpriced.
And corruption.
And corrupt as well. And corrupt as well. Thank you very much. So should be no celebration for us borrowing money from the Exim Bank when we could have just purely planning. They've already spent the $500 million. What the money getting back from Exxon is to recoup, but we've already financed it out of our own coffers. I mean, if it was under the APNU AFC government, we would have been almost 95% completed with the money that the PPP has spent. So even though the interest rates is high, we are saying that this country has enough money prudently. If we plan and we do prudent spending and planning, we do not need to be borrowing these hundreds of billions of dollars and passing it down to our future generations. And I let Vince speak on the negotiations.
Yes. Thanks, Dave, and thanks, Davina. Listen, the bottom line is that this vice president and this government has shown, just sheer cowardliness and fecklessness. And like I said before, could you imagine Dr. Jagan being in this position and not wanting to stand up to Exxon for us to get a better share? Listen, we welcome the AFC and all of the opposition welcome investment. We welcome Exxon and whoever else wants to come into this country for foreign direct investment. But all we are asking for is a fair share for the Guyanese people. And this government has neglected that the main mission of theirs, which is to look out for the best for our people. And we have seen it. We have seen the vice president, like I said, in his battle gear red short, shouting from the rooftop. And let me quote him again. They sold us out to the foreigners. Now, who is they? Is he talking about his own party? Like, I want to go back again. There are 9 contracts. The last time I checked, 9. The PPP signed 7 before the AFC and and APNU went into office. 7 they signed, and they're all just about the same. They have the same clauses that he bashes all the time. So is he saying that his party sold his country out? But you see, he doesn't realize that people would fact check these type.
Go ahead. We're hearing you, Vince. Go ahead.
Right. Well, yeah, I'm getting to that because the clause is clear. Clause started 2.1 in the Starboard block, and it's about the same. I can't remember the clauses in the other 7 blocks, that in the other 7 agreements that they signed. It says very clearly that you cannot move forward with renegotiation. It didn't use the word renegotiate. It used change, modify, and all these kinds of stuff, but it meant renegotiate. You cannot do that without the consent of both parties. Well, how do you get the consent of both parties without requesting that consent? Why is he so timid to write a letter, to put it in writing, and you're making these excuses? Well, they're going to say that they're not going to, they've said it in public. Where is that official that they're saying something in public? But that is how this guy operates. He's kind of slippery, and he does take people for fools that we just gonna sit back and listen to him. But I'm glad that the media is pressing him, and you folks need to keep pressing him as to why. What does it take from him just to write a letter to Exxon, a few seconds or even 2 lines, to say, we would like to sit with you to renegotiate? That is the big question. Why is he so scared when the process calls for that in that clause started 2.1?
Thank you very much. I know I have quite a few hands up, and I am going to ask all our presenters to be brief because I know we're over our 1 hour time. So can I go to Demarar Waves, and after that it would be Shamar Musa. Demarar Waves, we're not hearing your question.
No, I heard Davina was asking for another opportunity, so I was waiting on your decision. Are you hearing?
Yes, we're hearing you loud and clear. Please go ahead.
Mr. Hughes, aren't you concerned that given the fact that Mr. Hazrat Mohammed has been sanctioned by the U.S., your support for him entering the political fray, notwithstanding the conditions you pointed to, can eventually hurt your party at the next elections?
Sorry, I didn't get that. Are you suggesting that because Mr. Mohammed is...
I'm not suggesting, I'm asking.
Yeah, but I didn't hear what you were saying.
I'm asking whether you're concerned that given the fact that Mr. Mohammed has been sanctioned by the U.S., your support for him entering the political fray can hurt your party's chances in the lead up to the next elections.
No. Mr. Shabal, I'd like to be very clear in what I said. I said any citizen who wants to enter the political fray should be allowed and encouraged to do so. Now, whether or not the person is sanctioned, the person has a criminal record or what have you, that's a matter for the electorate. That's not a matter for me. It's not a matter for the Alliance for Change. What we are saying, however, is that if a citizen wants to enter, whatever challenges they may have, the public will be aware of them. And so we're not supporting Mr. Mohammed, but we're certainly supporting if Mr. Mohammed wants to go into politics, he should be free to do so. And we believe the wider the choices the Guyanese people have, the better it is for them. For too long, we've had very limited choices. So I don't know if that addresses the question you asked.
Yes, it does, Mr. Hughes. And as I have the floor, please, can you say whether your party is going to coalesce with the APNU and on what conditions?
Dennis, my response to your earlier question months ago on this matter remains unchanged. We have not reached that stage. We are not at that stage at the moment. We are still listening and grounding. And so I regret there's been no change in our position.
Thank you very much. And can I invite Shamar Musa to ask your question?
Yes, good afternoon. Shamar Musa, Guyana Chronicle. I just have two quick questions, if I'm allowed to just go with both of them quickly.
Yes, please go ahead.
The first question. It has been widely reported that the U.S. Exim Bank's announcement of the loan approval for Guyana proves that the AFC was indeed spreading misinformation. How does the party justify its actions? And are the members prepared to apologize for its statements that are being widely criticized as misleading? And my second question, Mr. Hughes, you recently said that the delay in reviewing the party's role in the attempts to influence the outcome of the 2020 elections was as a result of not having a response from GCOM. However, GCOM denied those claims and said that it was in fact the AFC that hadn't responded to the commission. Is the party dodging accountability? And with GCOM's clarification, would this review be conducted soon?
First of all, let me say this. The party does not dodge accountability. From the time I was elected, I said that we are going to conduct that review. We are committed to conducting the review, and I certainly didn't say it was because of GCOM, that's why we were delayed. We are conducting that review. What I will say is when we start the review, the members of our party will know. This is not going to become a public spectacle, but it's certainly going to be a very robust internal review process. So I don't know if that addresses your question. I believe the second question you asked was in relation to the gas to energy. David, you want to take it or are you going to take it?
Well, my answer...
Sorry. Here you go.
My answer remains the same. I think that this is a running question, and I think that the facts are there. There was a premature announcement that it was approved. That was a pre-approval, and in my statement, none other than the fourth-term President Jaggi himself had another press conference to announce the approval, the final approval of the loan. So what is there to apologize?
He was being deliberately inaccurate.
Yes, deliberately inaccurate, and he was premature. And I thought, he probably was scolded by the Exim Bank for putting them on the spot.
Thank you very much. Now, can I invite Livewire News? And that would be followed by Milton Granham from Stabrook News.
Happy New Year to the team there at AFC. I have three questions today. First of all, Mr. Hughes, you recently repeated the long discredited claim that the PPP was responsible for the death of 1,200 young Afro-Guyanese men. Some are of the view that by doing so, particularly without the support of any evidence, you're seeking to divide Guyanese along ethnic lines. How do you justify making such a serious allegation without concrete evidence? And how do you respond to concerns that such statements may inflame ethnic tensions? My second question is there any update to the internal review of the 2020 elections? And the third and final, Mr. Vincent Adams would have spoke and referenced the contracts prior to the APNU AFC government, which would have been more than 5 years ago. How does Mr. Vincent Adams contrast that with his very party refusing to answer questions from just 4 years ago when they were in administration? Thank you.
Well, Mr. Jones, Happy New Year. It's always good to engage with you, and I take the opportunity to personally wish you the very best. I've been practicing law for 37 years, and between 1992 and today, I have represented the families of several people who have either been shot, killed, murdered by the Guyana Police Force. And the numbers that I have and the circumstances in which people have been shot and killed, I believe that the number I gave is accurate. And just to remind you, Shaquille Grant was put to lie on the ground with 5 other people in Agricola, shot through his head. If you want to go back to what started the whole problem in Buxton with Shaka Blair, we can do that. I mean, since 1992, I have more than sufficient bases upon which I can say that. I believe in relation to your contention about the 2020 review, we answered that just a moment ago. I don't think there's a necessity to respond to that because I think it was the person who asked the question just before you did, and I responded to that. So if you missed it, you can probably catch us on the replay. Mr. Adams, I think, will respond to your final question.
But there wasn't a question.
Yeah.
I want to take us at this point to
Mr. Adams has to speak. He asked some question for Mr. Adams.
Vince. Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, quickly. I'm not sure I get the gist of the question, but
Yeah.
the context of
Go ahead, Vince.
Sorry, Vince. Go ahead.
No, I don't think it did.
There was.
No, he
It
didn't.
was a
Vince, you're right.
It was a comment.
It wasn't a question, it was a comment. So you're perfectly correct.
Let's move on.
So please, can I invite Mr. Milton Granum from Stabrook News, and that would be followed by Adam Harris. Mr. Granum, we're not hearing you.
We'll take Adam in a meeting.
Can I take Mr. Adam Harris, and then we come back to Mr. Granum, if possible?
I am ready. I'm here and I'm ready.
Okay, well, we're hearing you now. Please go ahead. Mr. Granum, we're not hearing you right now. We were a few minutes ago.
I can't speak if someone else is speaking.
There's nobody else speaking.
Nobody else is speaking. Please go ahead.
Okay. Okay, sure. Good afternoon. Happy New Year to you guys. Milton Granum from Stabrook News. You said you don't have any confidence in GCOM or the chairperson, Justice Retired Claudette Singh. Does this mean that the AFC might pull out from the 2025 elections, especially if Justice Retired Singh is at the helm of the commission? Also, Mr. Patterson said that the Harbor Bridge will not be completed by August 31. Can you say on the basis of what you concluded that it wouldn't be completed? Also, the same with the gas energy project.
Sure. Thank you very much, Mr. Granum. In relation to...
Also, 1 minute
Sorry.
before you go ahead, there's an echo and we're hearing you very low online here. I don't know if that can be resolved before you start speaking.
I'm going to try to speak closer to the mic. Is this any better for you? Is this better, Mr. Granum? I'm not getting a response, and you did ask me to speak better or closer. Is this better, Mr. Granum?
It's not a whole lot better, but it can work.
Okay, thank you. Now, in relation to your question about the AFC participating in the election, despite the fact that we have a lack of confidence in the chair, the AFC is not going to pull out of the election because we have a lack of confidence in the chair. What we will do, both heading into the election, during the elections, and after the elections, is to continue to demonstrate those areas in which there may be malpractice, there may be questions of a lack of transparency, there may be issues that we believe are so fundamental to the conduct of proper elections that we will publicize them, and people can then decide after that about the integrity of the elections. But we certainly don't have any immediate plans at the moment. It may well be that we do reach a stage where it is just simply not possible to continue with Ms. Singh, and that will not be a single decision by the Alliance for Change. It will be a collective decision, I'm sure, by at least the majority of the parties that are not in office at the moment.
Mr. Graham, thank you very much for the question, and thank you very much for the opportunity to expand on my prediction, and which I made 2 years ago and proven right, and I will be proven right again this time. There's a sequence of work that has to be done for a bridge or for any particular project, and there can be no shortcuts for it. For a suspension bridge, I think the only phase that has been completed for this project is the piles. I'm not even sure all have been completed, but at least for the bridge. But the piers, there's still piers to be done. The towers, if you're aware, I don't want to go through sequentially, but I'm telling you why I know how that it wouldn't be finished. There is towers that has to be erected on top of the main span. There's saddles, there's anchorages. If you ever looked at if you ever traveled, Mr. Granham, or if you go to see the Delham Bridge in Region 7, it's supported by cables. Those cables have to be manufactured, drawn, tension, placed in there. The decking has to be put there. You have to cover the decking. You have to asphalt the deckings. You have to do electrical work, electrical mechanical maintenance work. You have to do we have to put up what we call fender protection. Protection for the bridge, collision protection for the bridges. You have to dredge it. They also have to dredge the entrance. And of course, you have to get roads connecting to the bridge. And if you believe that, and I can sit and give you a detailed breakdown of what's good, but if you believe that you can simply just get up and say the drop dead date is August the 31st and get all of these things in place, that is, I say to you, that's very wishful thinking. But I can give you, off record, I can give you a full sequence of work that has to be done, and you can look at it yourself, because the decking hasn't even been done. They haven't been manufactured. And then you have to, the cables, the tower. When this bridge is supposedly finished, the suspension tower will be 153 meters above the sea, above the Demerara River. That's 360 feet high. So if you think you are seeing that now, and that'll be finished by now in August, you can see you're better than most Guyanese.
You can drop for the faint.
Yeah, you're better than most Guyanese. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. In fact, I did want to mention that also on our team is Member Parliament and founding member of the AFC, Mr. Kemaraj Ramjatan. David, I think you wanted to say something else, and then we will ask Adam.
Just quickly, he asked, the second question is why the gas ashore would not, project will not be finished. The recent drone, they have soil stability problems, and it's like building a house. If you can't get the foundation finished, there's no way you can get to the first floor, the second floor, and the roof. And 2 years out, they have soil stability problem. The tolerance level for I'm going to get a bit technical here. The tolerance level for a power generator powered by gas is very, very tight. You can not have a vibration of a few millimeters, because obviously you don't want the connections between the generator and the pipe to move or burst or leak. So you have to get that right, and they haven't gotten it right. That's why you have the two claims at the moment. And they know it, but they're trying to, what should I say, hang on by the skin of their fingernails until by bluffing the people in the nation that they will get something done before the next election. But every engineer or everybody that knows the process knows this for a fact. Thank you.
Yeah, let me just make a comment. Didn't want to let the time pass. We must add to that what is happening in the sugar industry. Mr. Jagdeo and Mr. Irfan Dr. Irfan Ali, they're going to have, apart from drop dead dates, all being miscued, also the Riot Act. They're going to be reading the Riot Act all the time this year. Heads will roll. Some special heads will not roll. They will go to Brussels to become European Union representative, like says Narayan Singh, who they had said will bring back that industry 4 years ago, and he has not. But he is well liked by them, so they send him to Brussels to put Paul Chung now, and to have Paul Chung taking a lot of the blames. But they're not going to do him anything because he's a PPP executive. So they're going to get away with factory manager and other lab lab manager and so on from Albion. But this is what is so across the board. Riot Act being read and drop dead date being given. We're going to get plenty this year.
Is that the same about GPL? That heads will roll?
Thank you very much. Let me invite Adam Harris to pose your...
Yes, a very good afternoon, everybody. Two quick questions. One for Mr. Hughes, the other for Mr. Patterson. Mr. Hughes, are you in a position to talk about the state of the cash grant distribution? I know it's confusion. I was a pensioner, and I should have been among the first to get, and I ain't get none yet. That's all right. And the question for Mr. Patterson. Sir, are you aware of a specialty hospital being built across from Movie Town? And if you are, who's the owner? And when was that construction made known to the public?
Adam, my answer is very short. No, other than the chaos and confusion that I have to thank the press for bringing to our attention. Our people on the ground have said, for example, in Region 9, it is very chaotic, and it continues to be chaotic. I mentioned earlier, of course, the way in which the pensioners and the teachers have been treated with absolute disgust and contempt. But other than that, I have nothing specific. So I'll allow David to respond.
Hi, Adam. Happy New Year. And I don't know if I could help you getting a pension, but if you need any help, let me know. Adam, I'm unaware of the specialty hospital. I mean, I'm aware, myself and Kemraj are keenly aware of the attempts by the PPP for a specialty hospital under the Ramatara government and all the shenanigans that went on there. I think there's still somebody in the wind with our money who we were unable to apprehend, because I don't think he ever returned, did he?
The fellow from the engineering.
Yes, the engineering firm, you know what I mean? So, and obviously, and the PPP are good at this, I mean, because they're good at with resurrecting the dead. So we look into it, because I saw today that the Vice President said they're going back out to tender for the Myla Falls project. So they're good at bringing out zombies, you know what I mean? They barely got the one at 70 Road under control, so they're looking for some more now. So I'll look into it, Adam, and then maybe the bishop can be called in to do some exorcism.
And to exercise,
yeah,
drop dead date.
Drop dead date again. So we look into it very, very closely, Adam.
Can we go to Damar Waves and then followed by Davina of Kaichor News?
Yes, Mr. Hughes, to what extent would you consider advocating on behalf of your party, or will your party be advocating rather, for, say, Ms. Laura George to be the prime ministerial candidate, given the fact she brings the qualities of the Indigenous background, and she's a woman? And can you also say at this stage whether your party intends to advocate any particular safeguards as regards funding for, Ms. George expressed concern about the use of state resources in the Indigenous communities, will your party be seeking to have any advocacy in that area beyond just the talk of the press conferences so that there appears to be a level playing field going into the next elections?
Dennis, I'm happy that you share the same view I have of Ms. Laura George, that she's more than eminently qualified to play a leading role in any government. But the party has the ultimate say on who is the presidential candidate, who is the prime ministerial candidate, and the party's processes will always be adhered to. They've always been adhered to in the past. So I can't make any predictions, but I certainly endorse your view that Ms. George is an exceptional person. In relation to what Ms. George advocated for, we certainly support it, and we are actually going to be releasing our plan for the rapid development of the Indigenous community outside of people rolling in and giving them $25,000 wrapped up in a T-shirt, and every time elections roll by, you give them a boat or something of the sort. Our program is based on the dignity and respect of the Indigenous people. As you know from several press conferences, education is one of the major areas of our concern. Matriculation rates in Region 9 at 5%. So we will have a comprehensive program, and we believe, we've said this before publicly, that the Indigenous development has to be put in a special category. So I don't know if that addresses all that you inquired about.
Have you got a time frame whereby when you'll be making decisions about a coalition, as well as your prime ministerial candidates? Are there time frames you're working with? And if so, what are these?
First of all, we have to be sure that we have elections in 2025. That's the first thing we have to do. So when we know that and we get closer to the event, I'm sure you're going to be informed, as everybody else, about that.
But the party started off the press conference by saying this is the election year. So then why are you dodging the question?
It is an election year. The Constitution says it has to be held before November this year. So it is an election year. Nothing inaccurate about that. But you would remember that we were supposed to have elections in 1990, and we didn't have them until 1992. So 1990 would have been an election year, but circumstances led to it being held in 92. So we stand by the fact it's an election year. But we have many issues. We have the list, we have biometrics, all those things, GCOM, all those things have to be decided.
Thank you very much.
Well, aren't you planning?
Final question. Can I ask Davina to ask a question?
Thank you. Mr. Hughes, can you hear me?
Yes, I certainly can.
Mr. Hughes, as one of the lawyers for Exxon, can you see if there's a confidentiality clause in the gas to energy agreement, the heads of agreement that was signed with government that may be hindering its release? Perhaps can you say if Exxon is opposed in any way to the release of this document? Thank you.
Davina, that is an invitation to so many things that are not legally correct. First of all, I am not Exxon's lawyer. I've said this repeatedly. My partner in my firm, Mr. Andrew Pollard, exclusively deals with Exxon. I think Exxon themselves have issued a public statement to that effect. So I don't deal with Exxon. I've never advised Exxon. So forgive me by saying that I am not the person that treats with Exxon. Secondly, you are really inviting a legal practitioner to breach the most fundamental code of ethics, which is to disclose client information. That privilege belongs to the client. And whether it's me, Mr. Pollard, or anybody, none of us is authorized, unless the client expressly says so, to disclose any discussions we have with them. So I'm afraid on the point of principle, even though I'm not their lawyer, I don't think any lawyer would disclose any sort of, without the client's express permission.
It's a source of information
And
for journalists.
Yeah.
Same thing.
You know, there's actually the Legal Practitioners Act that speaks to that.
Okay, I am happy to thank the media for participating in this week's press conference. We've had a very interesting discussion. I'm happy too that we have no further questions, no hands up. So we say thank you. No one excluded, exactly. So we say thank you very much to everyone for joining us today. I want to thank my team from the Alliance for Change and to our technicians that are here also today. Be safe, have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.